it will be quite busy till the end of the year, but I decided nevertheless to come by and say hi. Yes, yes, come by and say hi and share with you my games of the candidates 2022 that finally took place, a long-awaited tournament. So I just want to talk more about what actually happened in this tournament, how I did. And before Kazakhstan, before the World Rapid and Blitz, I have the European what's next, the command what's next I prepared for you. So tomorrow we are driving to Paris, where we're going to have a few days, and then we're going to fly from Paris to Krakow. Then we'll drive to Katowice, where I'm gonna play in the European Rapid and Blitz Championship. And I thought that it's going to be a good training before Kazakhstan, before Almaty, which is going to take place a little bit later in Almaty in Kazakhstan from December 25th to December 30th. So it will be very, very busy end of the year. But I love those Rapid and Blitz events, so I will try to enjoy them. And I will get, live once in a while in between those tournaments to share with you my impressions. So, for example, after Katowice, I will have a few before my trip to Kazakhstan. So fingers crossed, so like December 19th, 20th, 21st, something like this. I'm gonna talk about the European Rapid and Blitz. But as I said, today we're gonna talk about the women's candidates 2022-2023. I will tell you more about my video uploaded about the event. I'm not sure I will be able to show this video to you, but anyway, let's talk about these candidates and what happened. The Pool B of the women's candidates tournament took place in Khiva, Uzbekistan, from November 28th to December 11th, 2022, and I hope you had a chance to follow this event live with my two wonderful hosts, my sister Oksana and Kevin, aka KD Learns. They followed all 4 games live. They cheered and rooted for me, and I hope that you were also present. But before getting into these games, let me tell you a little bit more about the system of the candidates tournament, because for women this season is completely different than for men. This women's candidates tournament 2022 was supposed to take place in May 2022, and it was supposed to be with the exact same system and format as a so-called open candidates tournament, meaning 8 players qualified via different tournaments, via World Cup, via a series of Grand Prix, by the highest rating. 8 top players were supposed to play 14 rounds, but instead, because of this difficult situation and with this nightmare that started in February 2022, and because of the fact that there were 3 Russian players and 2 Ukrainian players, the International Chess Federation decided to split this tournament, to change the format of the tournament, and to split players into 2 groups, 4 players in each pool. So Pool A consisted of Anna and Maria Muzachuk, Hampi Konoru and Leiting J, and Pool B So 3 players from Russia, Katerina Lagno, Aleksandra Goryachkina, myself, and Tanjan Gui. So we played, it was like not really a tournament, but a series of matches. And the winners of Pool A and Pool B, which happened to be Leiting J and Tanjan Gui, are going to play against each other in the beginning of 2023. And then the winner of their match is going to play against the current Women's World Chess Champion, Zhu Wenjun. So quite a complicated format. So we see here it's womenscandidates.fide.com. Yeah, I think it's gonna be easier for FIDE to organize this all Chinese match. They most likely are going to play in China, and then the Women's World Championship match also can take place in China, so everyone can be happy. Because it's quite challenging for Chinese players to travel nowadays. For the last 2 years, it's been quite a challenge. You can see all the matches, and it's a Pool A, it's a Pool B matches. I'm not sure we can find. Yeah, that was in Monaco. Pool A took place a little bit before that, from October 24th to November 6th. There were many tense matches. Some of them finished on tie breaks. Well, on just one of them, actually, between Humpy Conor and Anna Muzychuk. And then Leiting J won in the final of this group against Anna Muzychuk, thus qualifying for the final match of these candidates. For me, I got paired against Aleksandra Goryachkina. She was the rating favorite of the event. She's rated number 2 in the world nowadays, just behind Ho Yifan. And well, of course, I knew that it would be quite a challenging and difficult match to play, because Alexandra is a very, very, very solid player, and her style is very well suited for a match system. But as we may remember, I managed to win against Alexandra in the finals of the Women's World Cup 2021. And actually before this match, and even after, I think, I am leading in the head-to-head score against Alexandra. But I think I just was a little bit lucky to play against her a few games when she was still very, very young. Okay, so in the first game, I played white. I picked the white pieces in the drawing of lots. And even though I was not 100% sure, but the Berlin defense that Alexandra prepared for her World Championship match against Zhu Wenjun 2.5 years ago, well, almost 3 years ago, she uses this system not so often, but it's the most solid weapon when she wants to play it safe and she is okay with making a draw with black. She goes for this line, for this Berlin setup. And it was first Vladimir Kramnik who used this line against Garry Kasparov in the year 2000, 22 years ago. And at this time, the endgame, like the main line that was considered to be with an advantage for white, was this line. And then well, Garry Kasparov tried very hard to prove that this endgame is a bad endgame for black. He didn't succeed. And Ever since then, this line has been on the radars and has been used for many top grandmasters. For many top grandmasters, and Alexandra is using this line that she's playing Berlin very often. I prepared the so-called anti-Berlin, so I didn't opt for a short side castle. I instead protected this pawn on e4. Black played bishop to c5. And actually, when I protected this pawn on e4, of course, I created a threat of taking on c6 and taking on e5. And by playing bishop c5, Black protected this pawn, because after taking on c6, and I cannot really capture on e5 because of queen d4 with a double attack. So, of course, it was not my idea. It was not my intention to take on e5. This pawn on e5 is protected, maybe not directly, but indirectly. And that's why I played knight b to d2. I'm heading to c4, and my idea is to put some pressure on e5. Of course, it's a very well-known theory. There are different move orders, different lines for black and for white. It's quite a complicated position. It's an equal position, I would say, but white is trying to prove that these doubled pawns and the fact that there are 4 pawns here and a pair of them is doubled can be used somewhere in the endgame. Not, of course, not very soon. It will still require a lot of moves, a lot of maneuvers to prove that this weakness, positional weakness of the pawn structure, can be used. Knight c4, rook e8, and here I made a waiting move. I played king h1, because usually in this position black plays f6, protecting this pawn on e5 and preparing this maneuver by the knight. Alexandra instead made also a waiting move. She played b6. She decided not to cover this diagonal, because if black plays f6, I can have different ideas with connected with knight h4, because after f6 the square is not under the queen's control anymore. No, it's not a bad move to play h3. I just had a different plan. h3 probably here is also possible, some kind of waiting move as well. But I mean, h3, it's not so clear if I'm gonna need this move or not, because bishop g4 is not black's idea, is not in black's plans to play bishop g4. And even if we imagine after f6, knight f8, even if black plays bishop g4, I can play h3 then, attacking the bishop and preparing g4. So king h1, as I said, is a waiting move, and I make this square vacant for my pieces, either this knight or this rook, and I can use it either way, depending on black's choice, on black's next moves. And b6 Alexandra played, and probably here actually it would have been better to play h3 or a4, just to see what's next, because I want to see this move on the board. I want black to play f6, and with this knight on d7, it's not very comfortable to play with this knight on d7. It's kind of covering this bishop. So black, sooner or later, they will run out of useful moves, and they will need to make this move, protecting the pawn on e5 and preparing the maneuver, knight f8 maneuver. And in that case, after f6, I can always consider knight h4 or even rook g1, g4, g5 plan. Instead, I played knight to g1. Well, that's kind of an okay move. Maybe not the best move. I was not very happy about this move. After I made it, knight f8, but then at the end I managed to get what I was actually planning to get. Knight g3, bishop e6, knight e3, f6. So we see that black managed to play f6, they managed to secure the pawn on e5, they managed to put her knight on g6, thus opening up this diagonal for the slight squared bishop. And I played knight g to f5. I think it's not the right move here to continue. Actually, at home, we analyzed a lot this kind of structure and positions, and I was planning to put another knight onto f5. Knight e to f5 could have been a little bit stronger, because this knight can get to h5 at some point, and those two knights can create quite an unpleasant pressure onto g7. And of course it's all quite difficult, not so obvious, and I misplayed this position. Maybe not that much, but yeah, knight e to f5 would have been a little bit stronger. I played knight g to f5, queen d7, queen f3, king h8, and here for some unknown reason I decided to try this plan with rook g1, g4, g5, which I already mentioned, but actually it's not the way to play. It's not the right position for this plan. So I knew a lot of plans, a lot of ideas, and somehow mixed them up in this game, and I didn't manage to use all those ideas correctly. Again, something like a4 could have been better than b3, maybe even bishop b2, trying to prepare d4 at some point might have been better. I played rook g1, Alexandra played knight f4, g3, knight h3, so she continued her knight's maneuvering. Her knight did quite a job in this game. So now from g6 it transferred to f7, and we should remember that it's a g8 knight, right? It started the game on the g8, it went to f6 and d7, then f8 and g6, then f4, h3, g5, f7, so quite a lot of maneuvering, and it's not over yet for this knight. b3, I think g4 and then f3, yeah, with the idea after g6 not to retreat my knight but play f3 could have been stronger. Instead I've played b3, and somehow knight went on to d6 and then to b5, and here my position is already quite a bad one. I mean, black outmaneuvered me clearly. Bishop b2, bishop d4, and here I made a mistake. I captured on d4, and Alexandra could have taken with the pawn, and then if I retreat my knight somewhere, she can always have this idea, quite an unpleasant idea, connected with f5, or if I get to g2, she can play knight c3, and my two knights are very poorly placed. But luckily for me, Alexandra captured with the knight, and after knight d1, c5 she played, and the position became almost equal. The only thing that I had to play f4 here. I had to play f4, and if black takes, to take with the pawn, and actually I am threatening already to play f5, and suddenly this open g file can be used by my pieces to create a very, very unpleasant attack. Because imagine if I play f5, then I play queen g4, rook g1, rook g2, another rook to g1, and then what to do, how to protect this pawn on g7. So that's why black has to play f5, but in that case I can play c3 only then, and capture the pawn on f5, and the position is completely chaotic, very complicated, and black has to be careful here, because if she captures on c3, for example, again, queen c2, rook g1, and my two knights, suddenly they start to play around the king, around the black king, and it's not that pleasant. The position is not that pleasant anymore for black. But okay, luckily for black there is a rook a to d8 move, putting pressure onto d3, and according to the computer the position is about equal, but again it's crazy equal. White does have some counter ideas connected with using these G file and H file and these two knights, so I had to play f4. Definitely I had to play f4. Instead I made a huge positional mistake. I played c3, thus weakening this pawn on d3, and usually this move can be made only if I win a pawn or if I play d4 on the next move, not just like this, because after knight c6 suddenly I have to face this idea. So rook a to d8 is a threat now. I have to move my queen away to protect the pawn, to be able to protect it after rook a to d8. But after queen e2, suddenly a5. And since my pawn moved to c3, I'm not able to meet this a5 move with a standard a4. I'm not able to blockade this pawn because my pawn on b3 is hanging. That's why the c3 move is a bad move. It's not only weakening the pawn on d3, but also it's weakening the pawn on b3, thus making it impossible for me to play a4. And my position started to deteriorate, to go downhill here. I played f4, trying to create some counterplay on the king's side, but it's too late. Black is just way ahead. a4, rook a b1, trying to protect my weak pawns. Rook e to d8, rook f to d1, rook a3, and here unfortunately I cannot play knight c4 because of a very strong idea of sacrificing this exchange. Just taking on c4, taking on d3, taking on e4, it's a position to resign. So unfortunately, you know, when a position deteriorate, just very difficult to pronounce. Exactly, it's a very difficult to pronounce word. So what I wanted to say is that when you have a strategically good position, which is the case for black right here, right now, white has just too many weaknesses. My pieces are not standing greatly. I mean, this knight on h4 is definitely out of play. I wasn't able to create this counterplay and use this knight against the king on the king side. So right now just resting there. And thus I need to use my strong pieces such as rooks and queen to protect those weaknesses. Strategically, black's position is very good, and exactly at this moment you should look out for tactics, because usually tactics work very well for the side with a positional advantage. And this is the case after knight c4, rook b3. Suddenly, maybe not that suddenly all those tactical motives start to work out very well for black. This is spin, right? My rook is... I cannot take with this pawn because my rook is hanging. And if I play rook b1, then bishop takes d3. And again, what to do? What to do? Too bad. And c4. Black can play c4, protecting this bishop on t3, and just my position seems to be collapsing. So that's why I didn't play knight c4. I played queen to c2, b5, knight f3, at least getting my knight out from the edge of the board, but it's just too late. Look at my all pieces are just desperately trying to protect one pawn weakness. And that is happening just because I made all this one positional mistake. c3 was a huge mistake actually. E takes f4, g takes f4, and I was in time trouble here. my position didn't look great, and I got very lucky that Alexandra decided to play f5. She was hoping that e takes f5 is not possible. She was hoping that I would play e5, and then she can use the fact that this big diagonal is open and my king is exposed. Instead, she should have played queen h5 immediately, because suddenly, well, those knights, they are not very good in defending my king, nor the second rank, and I don't know what I would do here. f5, just bishop f7, and it's not so clear how to unpin all my pieces. How to unpin. Most likely I would play something like that, but then b4 can be played, trying to undermine this pawn and trying to get via d4. I mean, black will one way or another get to my king or to my pawns, my weakened pawns. But as I said, as I mentioned, Alexandra played f5, thus allowing me to take on e5, and after this exchange played knight e4, and suddenly the position is not that hopeless anymore, because probably when playing f5, Alexandra was hoping to capture the pawn, but here she realized that yes, she won a pawn, but I can play queen to g2. That was the move I was going to make, and suddenly I stabilized my position. This pawn is going to get lost, and her king is always quite weak. For example, if she plays knight e7, I can play rook g1, I can play rook f1, I have this idea with knight g5 at some point, and yeah, suddenly it's white who can play for a win here. So Alexandra spent whatever time she had here till the time control. She used almost all her time and played knight e7, but after that I played queen f2, putting some pressure on c5, protecting the pawn on f4, and after knight g6 we exchanged the queens, and I offered to draw here, which Alexandra agreed. It was quite a big relief because well, if she takes here, I take. She cannot take on d3 immediately because of the back rank mate combination. So she has to prepare and protect her king. But here I was going to play rook f1. If she takes here, then I can take and play rook f5, and then take with a check and play rook b5. And if she doesn't take on d3, if she plays g5, I can play h4, undermining this pawn and putting more pressure on this knight. So the position is indeed equal, and I was very happy not to lose, because at some point, as I said, I misplayed a lot, and Alexandra had great chances to open the score to win this first game, even though she played with black. The second game. What happens if she plays h6 instead of h5? Let's get back. Well, h6, I mean, it's possible, but in that case I can also play rook a7. I mean, h5, why I made this move, because after h5 there are some ideas connected with weak white king. So if she plays, for example, h4 and I play rook a7, then okay, maybe it's still too far away, but I was calculating in the game some ideas where my king somehow ends up in the checkmating that, but rook a7 is still possible here as well. Anyway, it's a draw. It's not like the only way to make a draw here, but there are different ways, of course. So going on, in the second game I played with black. I will turn the board to make it easier for me. And actually a good draw happened in this game. That is by far the best game of the match. I was quite proud of this game. I must begin with that Alexandra surprised me with e4. Even though she plays e4 in all title Tuesdays, I didn't consider it to be her main move in this match. I didn't really believe, like fully believe, that she would go for this e4, because in her classical over-the-board games, usually she's a d4 player. So it was quite a surprise. But as I said, she's played e4 in her career, a lot of Blitz games with e4, but in this position she always opted for the Scotch or the Italian. She's, I think, never played bishop b5. So she's worked quite a lot. She's prepared a new opening for this match. And here she played a4. She didn't go for c3, which allows d5, so-called martial attack. She played a4, which has this line has the name of anti-martial. White attacks b5 square, and black has several options to protect this pawn. They can play b4, one of the main moves. They can play rook b8, getting out of the spin, or I opted for the third option, which is bishop b7. I develop my bishop, I protect the rook, and that's how Magnus Carlsen also played, for example, against Jan Nepomniachtchi in their latest match in Dubai. Not only Magnus Carlsen, there are many games of the top grandmasters in this line. d3, d6, bishop d2. Quite a tricky line. Usually white plays knight d2 or c3 and get her knight to g3, but here again Alexandra prepared something different. She develops her bishop to d2, thus not allowing my knight to get to a5 immediately, and she's waiting for my next move. She keeps this option of developing the knight to c3 and d5, and because of that, because of this idea, knight c3, knight e5, I played b4. Again, there were many games of the top grandmasters in this position. c3, rook b8. One of the possibilities for black, using the fact that after c takes b4, I can retreat my bishop, and it's not possible to protect the pawn on b4. And I retreated my bishop to a8, although bishop c8 seems to be the main continuation here. One of the recent games was bishop c8, was a game between Ivic and Wojtaszek in the Olympiad in Chennai 2022. There was also a game Vasilia Graf Caruana in the Grand Swiss Riga 2021. So that's like the main move in this position. Instead I played bishop a8. Of course, I mean, it's a good intention to keep this bishop on the diagonal, hoping to have time to break through at some point by playing d5, but okay, unfortunately it's not possible. That's why bishop c8, bishop e6 or bishop g4 seems to be a more flexible idea. b5, white is giving up her extra pawn, but in a way, so she gets some tempi, extra tempi, because she kind of forces my rook to get to b5, and thus after knight c3 it gets under attack, so I need to spend more time to get it back. Knight d5, I captured on d5, e takes d4, so a lot of exchanges, and here is the key position of this line. According to the computer, the strongest move here is rook to a7, preparing queen c2, and trying to put pressure on this pawn. Actually, it's a very funny position because there are many pieces on the d file. I wish my bishop from a8 could have been placed to d7. Then it would have been the perfect d file one can ever create. Yeah, but unfortunately there is a vacant square, missing piece. Instead of rook a7, which, as I said, is strongest according to some engines on a very deep significant depth. Queen c2 was played in the game, and this move gives away all the advantage that white might had. I played bishop g5, and bishop g5 is a very nice move. I can be proud of it, and as I said, I am very proud of this game. I just played like a perfect game. I made all the strongest moves, and bishop a5 Alexandra played, of course, attacking my pawn on c7, but I noticed that it's not so easy to take on c7. I played queen to d7, moving out of this pin and setting up a deadly trap. Okay, bishop takes c7 is not possible because of rook b3, because of this hanging bishop, and that's why my position is okay. That's why my position is a good one. White cannot take the pawn immediately because of this hanging bishop. She has to protect this bishop, but that requires time. I must say that queen to c8 with the same idea would have been a big mistake, because with the queen on c8, bishop takes c7 is possible and is in fact very strong, because after rook takes b3 there is a very strong intermediate move, rook takes a8, and suddenly after this exchange white is a pawn up, and actually those pawns on black squares are easier to attack, and this b pawn is very dangerous, supported by this dark squared bishop. But as I said, in this game I made everything very well. Queen to d7, bishop to a4, queen to f5, and again, if white takes on c7, well, with the queen it would be quite a huge mistake because of rook b2, and then queen d5. Oops. If she takes with a bishop, I can take on d5, and finally my bishop on a8 is entering the game, is joining the game, and yeah, all my dreams came true. It's open, it's on the big diagonal, and my position is great. And that's why Alexandra decided not to take on c7. She played bishop c6, but in that case I exchanged this light squared bishop, and even though this pawn is quite weak, but since this pawn moved to c-file, it kind of covered the c-file for white pieces, and that makes it very hard for white to put more pressure onto this pawn. Hi everyone, thanks for joining. Here I am recapping my match against Aleksandra Goryachkina in the Pool B women's FIDE candidates this year that I played a few weeks ago, and unfortunately I lost, but there were many mistakes to learn from, and I'm trying to share here some of them to avoid them in the future. Okay, rook f to c8, and yeah, the rest is quite easy. So white, surprisingly, she supported her bishop by playing b4, but this bishop has nowhere to go, so it's like white is almost playing with a bishop down. Without a bishop, you have to be very careful about making such moves, because this bishop has nowhere to go anymore. But okay, since it counterattacks this c7 pawn and my rook is kind of almost glued to this pawn to protecting it, it's okay. It's a situation of balance. Okay, h5, quite a strong move, although I hesitated for quite a while whether I have to put my pawn on h5 or whether I have to play h6, but I decided that putting my pawns on the light squared, it's okay, due to the fact that I have a dark squared bishop. And thank you, of course, for all the subs and for all your support. Bishop f6, rook a to c1, g6, g3. Okay, and we maneuvered. I tried to put some pressure on to c6 pawn, but Alexandra managed to protect it. It's her rook and her queen. And there is no way to improve this position for neither side. Not for me, not for Alexandra. Rook a7, queen h3. I gotta be careful, a little bit careful, not to let white king onto d7. It might be unpleasant. And there was one more thing to watch out. It was a possible sacrifice, exchange sacrifice. When was that? Here, I think. Yeah, I played rook a6. I put some pressure onto c6. Instead, bishop e5 could have been quite a huge inaccuracy, because suddenly white has a very strong idea of playing rook to c5, sacrificing an exchange but getting through closer to my king. And even though this position might still be holdable, but it's quite unpleasant to calculate all those ideas connected to rook e7, rook c5. I mean, who knows, right? So I decided to play it safe and not let white play rook c5. So first I played rook a6, and only after rook c4 I played bishop e5, because here after rook c5 it's not the same story, because the pawn on c6 is hanging. Okay, and we agreed on a draw here. We repeated the moves and agreed on a draw, and as I said, I'm quite proud. I'm very proud of this game. A very solid, as they say, grandmaster draw. And well, do I review it with the coach? Well, we discuss, of course, these games with my husband, who is always supporting me, and he was there as well, helping me. And of course I look it with the computer. I try to check the lines that I calculated in the game with the computer. And here comes the third game, the crucial game of the match, as it turned out to be. Again, I was playing white, and something didn't go quite well with the white color in this match for myself. In this game, I decided not to go for the Berlin, not to try to break this Berlin wall, but instead I played the Italian and quite, well, a fancy nowadays, quite a fancy line of knight c3. Actually, we transpose to the 4 knights opening. The only problem is that if I play knight c3, knight f6, bishop c4 here, black has a very strong knight e4 idea. It's a very well-known line. That's why white is starting with bishop c4, and then they play knight c3. The position is almost symmetrical, but white has this one semi move ahead, right? One semi move advantage. And that's why after d6, look at the position, complete symmetry, 100%. But just the only problem for black that it's white to move, and that's why white is trying to use this fact. That's why white plays knight e4, trying just to get this bishop. And of course, it should be about equal, but somehow engines nowadays gives a small edge for white, and that's why if you check out databases, you're gonna see a lot of games from top grandmasters in this line. I prepared this line at home, and actually I was quite happy because Alexandra was not very well prepared. She was spending quite a lot of time and I played quite fast. So we actually gotten a position that this structure you can often see in some Italian games, where black has an open F file and they trying to use their pieces to create an attack on the king side, while white is trying to create a counterattack on the queen side. Okay, and here are some nice maneuvers. Rook a2 is a crucial move here because white's rook is supporting the king side, the f2 square, and thus making it harder for black to create any counterplay. Rook e1, protecting this pawn on e4 and preparing d4 in some cases. Okay, a4, as I said, white's idea is to create a counterplay on the king side. Knight e7, black on the other hand is trying to bring her pieces to the king side. And here I played a5, and I think it's a slight inaccuracy. I had to play bishop e3. I had to wait when black's knight goes away from the queen side to play a5. I think it would have been stronger only after knight g6 to make this a5 move, because here the knights are far away. If black plays knight h5, there is always knight e5 or knight g5 ideas, which are quite unpleasant, so it's not so easy to create any serious threats here. If black plays knight f4, I can always take, and here my position is just so much better. Instead, I played a5 immediately. I forgot actually about this rook a8 move. It was a little bit quite an unpleasant surprise, I must say, because well, the rook moved to d8 and I didn't consider it going back. Well, nothing of course serious, but here I have to deal with this idea of knight c6, and I have to protect my pawn somehow because my rook is not protected. The pawn is pinned, knight c6 is a threat. I played queen to b3, protecting my rook on a2, but I'm moving away my queen a little bit too far from the king side. Thus, after queen b3, knight h5 ideas, which are not possible with the queen on d1, sometimes become quite a serious possibility. Maybe bishop e3 with the idea on left of knight c6 to play queen to a1 would have been stronger, but again, it's not so clear. I played knight b3, b takes a5. I knew that usually white tries to capture with the b pawn here, but I just didn't like the fact that again after b takes a5, black can play knight c6, and then they're gonna exchange b7 for a5, and I thought that the position would be about equal. So I decided to take with the rook, knight g6, and here, since I was quite scared of all those ideas, was knight h4, knight h5, knight h4, I decided to open up the center, because as soon as I open up the center, all those ideas around my king are not so dangerous anymore. And here Alexandra surprised me tremendously, because I spent so much time trying to calculate and evaluate all those lines after rook takes a5, bishop takes a5, knight h5, queen b7, knight h4. I was calculating like crazy, you know, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. So I think after knight h5, I wouldn't, of course, take on b7. I would try to somehow prepare for this knight h4, knight takes g2 ideas. I'm not sure how, maybe by capturing on e5 with the idea to protect the knight by playing rook e3. But anyway, what I want to say, I thought that rook takes a5 and knight h4 was the way to continue for black. Instead, she played knight d7, and it was such a moment of relief. I was so happy that she didn't go for this attack. I played bishop e3, I played rook a2, and well, here she went back to f6, but she wasted time already. Knight h5, I mean, it looked quite strange. Knight d7, then back to f6, then to h5 maneuver. And I have a better position here, a much better position. I have the idea connected with rook a1, rook a7, but I played rook c1, which is a more obvious move. Knight h to f4, creating some pressure finally on the king side, creating threats, connected with taking on h3 or on g2. That's why I played knight e1. And here she played d5, and I made a mistake. The strongest move here is e5, but it's completely, I mean, this position, even though if you put this position on a weak engine, it gives a big advantage to white. But in fact, after knight h4, which was definitely the move she was going to make, there is the only move that gives white an edge according to the engine, but again, it's I would never make this move in a practical game. Most likely I would capture here, play g3, and then after all those exchanges, due to the fact that she put some pressure on f2, I'm not able to capture on c7. Yes, my position is slightly better, but it's not clear how to improve it. So it should have been a draw. It could have been a draw. In fact, the computer thinks and suggests that the strongest move here is b5, just showing, just indicating that black actually is not threatening anything. Just improving the position and then trying to play king h2, protecting the pawn on h3 and g3. Very complicated. I didn't play e5. I played king to h2. And here. The problem here is that if I take on c7, she takes, and then she protects the pawn. And yeah, because of the brilliant position of her knight, her position is better. So I was right to take knight d5, and here I liked rook c6 a lot. Rook c6, but I wasn't able to see the whole line till the end correctly, and I didn't make this move because after knight g2 in the game, I saw that after knight f6, knight g6, there is a very cute perpetual, right? There is a very cute perpetual. I'm protecting the rook with my queen, which is quite a shaky situation, but black is not able to somehow use this fact, because if she plays knight d7, I have rook h6, this pawn is pinned and black is losing, so she has to make a draw. But unfortunately for myself, I saw the line with knight f6, I realized that it should be a draw, but also in the game I saw another move, which is knight to c3. And in the game I calculated this line till this moment, and I just stopped. I thought that I'm losing an exchange here, and it's not enough. This compensation is not enough. Unfortunately, I mean, from quite far away from this position, I was not able to realize that after h5, the life is not over yet. White has two strong moves, which are connected with the fact that black's rook is also hanging. Queen to f3 actually gives white an advantage, so black cannot play knight c3. It's a trap. Knight c3 actually well, puts black in an unpleasant position. Unfortunately, I didn't see it till the end. I wasn't able to calculate till the very end, I wasn't able to see this idea of queen f3. Queen f4 is another possibility. It's more complicated, and it's just a draw. I played knight d3, which is an okay move, but here, I don't know, something started definitely going not going my way, because when I made this move, when I played knight d3, I said to myself, okay, queen f5 is coming, black's position is better due to the fact that this knight is so much stronger than my bishop, but I was going to play g3 and then knight f4. I calculated some lines that lead to some rook endgames, something like this. And I said to myself, well, it should be a draw. It should be a draw, and even if I take here, I mean, the best that black can get is 3 a pawn versus 2, which is a deadly draw position. And for some reason, when this position arose on the board, I didn't play g3. I saw the move rook c6, which I didn't make 2 moves ago. And for some reason I thought, wow, that's a good move. And I just made it. Emotions took over. Took over my head. And yeah, here rook f6 is a strong move. I had to keep the moves on the rooks on the board, but okay. Rook takes f6, knight f6, and it's okay. I mean, it's still an endgame that should be able. White should be able to hold it, but it's just so much easier for black to play. She has a very clear plan, right? My pawns are so weak. And suddenly her king is just coming up to d5. And I panicked. I was going to play g4, which I think is the easiest way to make a draw here. But I just panicked that she would go king e6. And I didn't have time to calculate knight f4, which seems to be the strongest move here, because I was already in time trouble. That's move 36. And I decided to play knight e5. I saw another idea of creating a protected passed pawn. Yes, my bishop is terrible. All my pawns are on the black squares. But I thought that thanks to the fact that this pawn is a passed pawn and it's protected, most of the endgames are gonna be drawn. And the evaluation is correct. This is, in fact, a drawn endgame, but it's so hard to do. So hard. It's a study-like endgame, because there is only one way to save the game. There is only one way to make a draw here. And unfortunately, I failed. I made... I mean, here's... If black manages to put the knight onto e6 by playing knight c6, knight d4, knight e6, the game is over. I played bishop e1, I made this move in the game, and after knight c6 I can resign. In fact, there was a way to save the game, and this way is connected with the counterplay on the king side. It is the only way to save the game, which is to play king g3. And it's of course counterintuitive, completely counterintuitive, because I'm just opening up the road to her king. I say, okay, go, come to e4, do whatever you want. And it's not the way to play in endgames, right? In endgames, you usually try to stop the opponent's king from penetrating, from getting into your, camp. And here, king g3 was the only way to save the game. Because if she plays king e4, there is another move, another only move that I have to make, which is b5. Well, this one is a little bit easier because it creates a very pleasant threat of actually winning the game. If black, I don't know, plays king to d3, I'm almost winning it. Well, maybe not winning it quite yet, but my pawn suddenly becomes quite a dangerous one. And so after b5, black has to be careful. If she plays c6, then again not very obvious, but suddenly my king gets to this pawn and it's a draw. If she goes to c4, again I take on f5. If she takes with the knight, I go king g4, and I have this threat, h4, h5, which helps me to save the game. If she takes with the pawn, again, king to h4. And that's why the position is completely lost with her knight on e6, because if her knight is standing on e6 in this position, she has knight g7, thus making it impossible for my king to get to h5. Yep, and here after king d3, another only move that saves the game, which is bishop to c1, because otherwise if I play bishop to e1, she just she gets enough tempi to attack my pawns and bishop. If I go to g3, then my bishop is not stopping this pawn. It just gets promoted. So it's a very study-like, complicated way to save the game, and I failed. I didn't find it. Bishop e1, knight c6. Well, I spent all the time I had here, but I wasn't able to find a saving continuation because there is none. And there was a final trick that I tried to use. After c5, suddenly I played b5, thus setting up a deadly trap. After c4, suddenly bishop a5 saves the game. My pawns getting promoted. B takes a5 even loses the game. But unfortunately, after b5, with the idea to play bishop a5, Alexandra just simply played king to d3, king to c4, and yeah, she won this pawn, she won another one, and yeah, just her position is too strong. My bishop is too weak, and she has two passed pawns, and there is no way I can stop them. Unfortunately, I resigned. Yeah, quite a complicated game. I managed to get a very pleasant position out of the opening. There was a very complicated middle game, but at some point around move 30, I started to opt for wrong continuations, and little by little, yeah, I lost it. And of course, when you lose with white, with one game to go, it's just too hard, because you cannot really allow yourself to play a regular opening with black, because there are just too many drawing lines, too many ways for white to exchange everything. And that's why I tried to play something that I've never played before, some weird King's Indian line. We gotten into some kind of a Zemish variation, and well, I think I had to play c5 here. I don't know why I didn't play c5 in this game. I had to castle and play c5 and try to get some kind of hedgehog structure, but okay, I was trying very hard to prepare b5, which I managed to play, but I don't have enough experience in this kind of structure, so I don't think I did my best. Again, c5 probably is a better idea, or rook d8, rook d8 and c5. I played e5 and tried to play on the king side by preparing f5, and actually I managed to play f5, and I sacrificed this pawn. And well, that is the key moment of this game, if I can name one. Here, the only way to complicate, the only attempt to complicate was to play e4. I had to play e4 here, and actually there are some chances. There are some chances to complicate, even though I'm pawn down. But after f takes e4, I have to play c5. And it's not so obvious. Yes, I'm 2 pawns down now, but you see this G file is open, and it's like a Banco Gambit reversed. Who knows? For example, if she plays knight a to c3, you play queen e7, then rook g8, and maybe at some point she will make a blunder. But okay, it's still too far away, but I think that was the only option to keep the game alive. I played rook to b3, but then knight a to c3, she protected this e4 square, and okay, she played rook c2, and I won this sacrificed pawn back, but it just led to many exchanges, which led to a slightly unpleasant endgame for me. Actually, I didn't play in the best possible way. I had to play bishop f8 and king g7 here. Instead, I played king g8, and Alexandra could have asked me some unpleasant questions because I blundered here. I played king to f7, and here it's a bad move. It's a bad move because here she had to play h4, and she's just way ahead with her pawns, and I'm too far away with my a pawn. But okay, Alexandra just saw that she can make a draw by this perpetual, and that's how the game ended and the match ended. So I lost the match 1.5 to 2.5. Unfortunately, it was a very interesting match, but yeah, unfortunately for me, I didn't do my best with playing white pieces. Anyway, Alexandra went on. She played against Tan Zhonghui in the final of our group, and she lost to Tan Zhonghui. Tan Zhonghui played a very strong and convincing match against Alexandra, thus qualifying for another match with her compatriot Lei Ting-Jie, that, as I said, won the Pool A of the women FIDE candidates, and the winner of their match is going to play against Zhu Weijun, who is the current women's world chess champion, although we haven't seen her lately a lot. She hasn't played in classical over-the-board tournaments outside of China, I think, for almost 3 years now. Or, no, two, I think. Anyway, that's it about FIDE candidates. That's it. I wanted to show you a video. I'm not sure, like, my... the best moment. Can I do it? Is it good? Yeah. No, wait. Let me rotate this video. Okay, I'm gonna rotate it. I can't rotate it. No, I should be able to rotate it. Come on, video. Let me rotate it. How do I rotate it? I don't know how to rotate it. It was the best moment. It doesn't. Here we go. So, just to let you all know, we played in Khiva in Uzbekistan, and it's a very ancient city located on the Silk Road, and the old town is amazing. The old town is amazing. It's a very beautiful, very neat, and yes, there is a camel living there in this old town. This camel is called Misha, and I rode Misha twice. I was able to ride, camel ride. So that's how I would remember Khiva. It was very cold, but this ride was worth it all. I was very happy. Yeah, that's me. That's me on the camel. Yeah, I put everything that I had not to be cold, because I wasn't prepared for this cold weather. When we arrived, it was plus 10 degrees Celsius, and suddenly it dropped to almost minus 10. It was quite a significant drop, temperature drop. But yeah. That's Khiva, Uzbekistan. Quite history. Okay, guys. Well, that's it. That's all I wanted to share with you. Yes, it's a lot like it's exactly like the Aladdin movie. It's a whole new world. That's it about the candidates. But as I said already next week, I'm playing in the European Rapid and Blitz in Poland. So I'm traveling to Poland on December 15th, but in between we're driving to Paris to have a direct flight from there. And then after Poland, we should get home on December 19th, and hopefully, fingers crossed, hopefully I'm gonna be able to share my impressions of this European Rapid and Blitz Championships with you. And then, yeah, and then you can prepare myself for the World Rapid and Blitz. That's gonna take place right before the new year in Kazakhstan. Right before the new year in Kazakhstan. And about Poland, it should be, well, I'm quite excited about this tournament because it's actually an open tournament. Women and men, they play, everyone plays one at the same in the same tournament, but there are, I mean, women have a possibility to win a European Women Rapid and Blitz Championship crown. So should be exciting. And well, that's it. I need to pack my suitcase, although it will be quite a we need to my husband and I, we need to pack all our items, all our stuff, so it's for both of us it's less than 10 kilos. It's quite a complicated one, traveling with hand luggage only. So that's what I'm gonna do. And yeah, as I said, I'm preparing for more streams in January. I will be home, and I promise that finally Sub Sunday and Bingo edition I'm thinking about will come eventually, will come up. Okay, so let me see who is streaming now so I can send the rate. And as I said, I hope to see you on the 19th or on the 20th, something like that. The 19th or on the 20th. Thanks. Yeah, I'm very excited about Rapid and Blitz, always. I never had I never have such an excitement for classical over-the-board tournaments. I don't know, it's just too long, too boring for me. For Rapid and Blitz, that's always great. Okay, guys, so here comes the raid. There should be raid coming up. And let me send the raid to Anna. I haven't seen her for quite a while. Anna Rudolph, Anna Chess, and as I said, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you around December 19th or 20th. Take care, guys. See you. Bye bye.